USC is a tough team to figure out. The Trojans entered 2023 with college football playoff aspirations, but went just 8-5. Now they lose their star quarterback in Caleb Williams and tons of offensive production. Their defense was atrocious and still needs tons of work. And now they make the transition to arguably a tougher conference in the Big Ten. For many, signs are pointing down for USC. But I'm here to tell you this team might surprise you in 2024. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. So glad you could join us today to break down the USC Trojans in their first year in the Big Ten. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those exclusive expert picks, some of the best spread picks in the entire country. You do not want to miss out on that, guys. Again, we beat out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. It'll be 7 after this year, and if you sign up for those, you do get access to our exclusive betting newsletter. So go check that out. All the links for everything down in the description below to make this season even better for you. More enjoyable and more profitable as well. So USC, guys, I mean, look, I really thought they were going to be a playoff team last year. I knew their defense was going to be bad, but I mean, you knew Caleb Williams. You felt that Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley were going to be able to get the job done after narrowly missing out in 2022. They started 6-0. Things were looking good and then got annihilated against Notre Dame, losing 48-20, and went just 1-5 down the stretch before beating Louisville in their bowl game. And it was in that bowl game against Louisville that we maybe saw a glimpse of the future for USC football. That was their quarterback in Miller Moss. So yes, Caleb Williams gone, but when you saw Moss play, you go, hey, we might not be too bad. He had 372 yards and 6 touchdowns in that game against Louisville. He's going to be the starter for the Trojans this year. So despite losing their star quarterback, despite losing their top 2 rushers, Miller Moss shows a lot of promise with one of the best offensive minds in the game in Lincoln Riley. Jaquavius Marks comes in at running back from Mississippi State. Yes, they do lose 4 of their top 6 pass catchers from last season, but they do return Zachariah Branch, who is a dangerous special teams player as well, dangerous on those kickoff returns. Their tight end Deuce Robinson returns, and the offensive line is set to take a big step forward after giving up 33 sacks in 2023. Defensively, no more Alex Grinch. Thank God. That's it. I mean, that was the biggest holdback for really any team that's been coached by Lincoln Riley over the last few years. You go look at Oklahoma. Offense was great. Defense, not so much. Alex Grinch. USC, what held them back in 2022? What held them back last year, among other things? Alex Grinch and that defense. Ironically, Grinch is off to another Big Ten school in Wisconsin, but they've got a new defensive coordinator at USC. That's D'Anton Lynn, stealing him from UCLA. Their in-state, their inner-city rival. Stealing him from UCLA, where he had a top 10 unit with the Bruins last year. Now, 9 starters are back for USC defensively. 6 of their top 8 tacklers. 3 of their top 4 tacklers, led by their linebacker, Mason Cobb. He is now paired with Oregon State's leading tackler from last year, transferring in from the Beavers, Easton Mascarenos Arnold. So you've got a dangerous linebacking core alongside Jalen Smith as well. Defensive line is going to be anchored by Bear Alexander and Jamil Muhammad, and the secondary brings in a handful of transfers and should see some improvement there as well. This USC team gave up over 34 points per game last year and over 186 on the ground. All of those marks will improve, but will the defense improve enough to take down LSU in week 1? That's where USC kicks off their season. Las Vegas on Sunday night against LSU. I love this matchup. This is one of my top matchups of week 1. It is a game that features the 2 programs that have produced the last 2 Heisman Trophy winners, but neither winner is there. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels both taken number 1 and number 2 in April's NFL draft. Neither team has their quarterback there. Both teams have a brand new defensive coordinator, LSU bringing in Blake Baker from Missouri. Obviously, we just talked about D'Anton Lynn at USC. The Tigers and the Trojans are more similar than you realize. 2 new defensive coordinators, both produced the last 2 Heisman winners. Both teams had quarterbacks that were backups that shined in their bowl games. Miller Moss against Louisville, Garrett Nussmeier for LSU against Wisconsin. These 2 teams are very, very similar and have had very similar paths to get to this point. Ultimately, though, I'm going to go with the Tigers in this game. I like this offense a lot. A potential high-scoring game on Las Vegas. Garrett Nussmeier looked great, and the Tigers have a lot of talent coming back. The front 7 on defense, looks pretty solid for LSU. And the secondary, while not great last year, should improve. Blake Baker had a great unit at Missouri last year. Think he gets his team ready to go. There will be a lot of points scored in Las Vegas, but LSU gets the job done barely. USC 0-1. They beat Utah State 1-1. They come out of their bye week. They take on Michigan. First ever Big Ten game for the Trojans. Welcome to the league. Your first Big Ten game is on the road against the reigning national champions in one of the most difficult places to play in the country. I mean, thank you, schedule makers, for that, right? Obviously, Michigan's not the same team that we saw last year. The Wolverines lose so much talent. They lose their coach and their quarterback and their running backs and their receivers. They lose so much. But this team will still have one of the best defenses in the nation. The Wolverines will. They have home field advantage on their side. And USC's playing them 4 weeks into the season instead of 1 or 2. Michigan's going to be able to work out some kinks early. And the Wolverines battle-tested playing Texas in week 2. I like Michigan to get the job done here. Their defense going to be way too good. Maybe going to rattle Miller Moss in what's going to be the most difficult environment that he started in, obviously, in his career. So they lose to Michigan. But after that, I think they win their next 2 games. The schedule for USC is very interesting here because while I do play Michigan and while I do play Penn State, they found a way to avoid Oregon in the Big Ten. They found a way to avoid Ohio State in the Big Ten. The schedule, all things considered, is pretty favorable, and 2 of their toughest games, LSU and Notre Dame, are in the non-conference. So the conference slate, which is what matters the most, isn't too bad. Maybe the Trojans could surprise. I think they do beat Wisconsin and Minnesota, as we mentioned. The Badgers have to come all the way out to L.A. Offensively, I don't think Wisconsin has enough. I know they added Tyler Van Dyke, should have improved quarterback play. Don't think they're going to have enough offensively to hang with this electric of a team in USC. And again, the Trojans' defense, I think, has improved a little bit. If they can improve their rushing defense and force Tyler Van Dyke to win this game through the air, all signs point to USC victory, and I think they do just that. And then they make that long road trip to Minnesota, who's a team that is kind of like USC in the sense of they're hard to figure out. This is a Minnesota team that could surprise. It can win 7, 8, maybe 9 games. They've got the talent to do so, but they have such a difficult schedule and a handful of question marks and new pieces where you could see them finishing with a losing record. I mean, it's one of those really, really weird range teams that we've come across this season. But I like USC's odds a little bit more in this game. I do have faith in D'Anton Lynn transforming this offense, and they're going to be significantly better. I believe USC, once again, owns the significant offensive advantage over Minnesota, despite their transfer quarterback, Max Brosmer, coming in. So give me the Trojans to go on the road, get a Big Ten conference win there. They're looking good, 2-1 in conference play, but then come back home to take on Penn State. Ooh, big-time Rose Bowl rematch, right? That 2016 Rose Bowl game, one of the best Rose Bowls we may have ever seen. USC did win that game. Penn State, big year for them. They've got to find a way to make the 12-team playoff. You know, James Franklin needs to get them there. They've got the talent to do so. I'm going to pick the Nittany Lions here for a bunch of different reasons, one of which is their defense. They have a defense that can absolutely slow down this USC offense. Penn State loaded at all 3 levels defensively. They've got a great defensive coordinator coming in, and Tom Allen, the former Indiana head coach. Penn State will have one of the best defenses in the country, again, at all 3 levels. And it's going to be able to rattle this USC offense a little bit. But secondly, if USC's defense has not improved the way it needs to be, Penn State will run all over the Trojans. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, one of the best running back duos in the nation, going up against a, iffy USC front 7, iffy USC rushing defense. One that will improve, but enough to stop that duo. I like Penn State a lot in this game. It'll be close, but the Nittany Lions get the job done. USC takes their 3rd loss of the year, which is far from ideal, right? That's not the best start in the world. Start 3-3 at the halfway point of the season. And it's like, 500, everybody's mad, especially with how last year went. But look at what USC has after that. We talked a second ago about how relatively favorable this schedule is. Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA. The Notre Dame at home. We'll get to that in a second. But all of those games are pretty winnable. All those games are pretty favorable. Yeah, 3 of those are on the road, but one of them's right down the road at UCLA. The other one's at Washington, who has a lot of key pieces to replace. And one of them's at Maryland, who's not going to be a bad team this year, but not elite. I'm going to tell you right now, out of those 5 games we just mentioned, USC wins every single one of them. They win 5 straight games. So don't panic if they get off to a bit of a slow start. LSU's tough. Michigan's tough. Penn State's tough. They got a tough first half of the schedule. The back half, significantly easier. You look at the Maryland game. Their secondary is a concern. Boom. Give me Miller Moss. Give me USC. Give me Lincoln Riley. Their front seven's good, but we know USC doesn't want to run the ball. That's not going to be their number one priority. They want to air it out. They will, and Maryland won't be able to stop it. Conversely, the Terrapins offense needs some work this year. They're going through a bit of a change offensively after Talia Tagovailoa departs. They beat Maryland on the road. Home against Rutgers. Rutgers having to travel all the way across the country. Don't like that for any team this year. Rutgers has a great rushing offense. Kyle Monangai, the leading rusher in the Big Ten last year. USC solely sells out on the run, tries to tell Rutgers, hey, if you want to beat us, you got to win it through the air. And I don't have faith in Rutgers being able to do that. They cannot win it solely through the air. So USC at home takes care of Rutgers. They go on the road to Washington, who, yes, they lost 252-42 last year. Yes, they allowed 316 rushing yards to the Huskies last year. But all those players are gone. Kalen DeBoer is gone, and Michael Penix is gone, and Dylan Johnson is gone. Those wide receivers are gone. They lose so much. And so even though it's a little bit north, they got to go into Seattle. The Huskies are not going to have enough to take down this USC team who is more experienced, has consistency at the head coaching position. It's going to be more of a well-oiled machine, I think, at this point in the year than Washington will be. They're going to go through some growing pains in year one under Jed Fish. They beat the Huskies in a Pac-12 reunion, come out of their bye week, beat Nebraska, who's going to come all the way out to LA. I think Nebraska's got a big year this season. I think they're finally going to break through to the postseason, but one of those 6 wins that they need is not going to come against USC. The defense for Nebraska is great, but how does their offense fare? We expect it to be significantly better. We expect Dylan Raiola to pan out, but can he do it against this USC improving defense? Can he do it on the road at the Coliseum? Can he do it off a USC team off a week of rest with some momentum now after 3 straight victories? I'm going to say no. So they beat Nebraska, and they beat UCLA, who's going to go through major growing pains in year one under Deshaun Foster. Yes, they lost by 18 to the Bruins last year, but that UCLA team drastically different. And USC, obviously, a team that was not very motivated towards the end of last year when their world came crumbling down after the loss to Notre Dame. So 5 straight wins, and then speaking of Notre Dame, we get to the Fighting Irish, who might be in the hunt for a college football playoff berth at this point. USC getting to host them. So that's a big, big game. An opportunity for USC, who is probably out of the playoff race at this point, obviously with 3 losses, but an opportunity to play spoiler against their bitter rival. But here's the thing. Last year, they lost to Notre Dame 48-20 in South Bend. They have lost 5 of the last 6 to Notre Dame. I know it was in South Bend, I get it. But if Notre Dame last year torched Caleb Williams, annihilated him, destroyed this USC team, why do I think that Notre Dame now, with an arguably better team than they had last year, can't do the same against a USC team that's going to be very solid, but maybe not as good as they were last year? You get what I'm saying? Notre Dame has all the talent. They've got Riley Leonard coming in, a veteran quarterback. They have one of the best defenses in the country. If that defense could light up that USC offense last year, they can absolutely do it again, even though it's on the road. The game's a little bit closer. It's not going to be decided by 28 points, but Notre Dame will get the win here, and USC, in their first year in the Big Ten, will go 8-4. And for some, that will be viewed as a disappointment. For some, that would be viewed as unacceptable. I say very acceptable. Your first year in a new conference without generational talent at quarterback, you go 8-4, and if you look, only 2 conference losses. Only 2 conference losses. Meaning, if they find a way to upset Penn State at home, which is not out of the question, they find a way to pull off a win against Michigan, or whatever that may be, they could be in the hunt for a Big Ten title in their first year. Only 2 conference losses. They will be towards the top of the Big Ten standings. It's those non-conference games, LSU and Notre Dame, that could end up plaguing them the most in the overall record. But as USC team is better than you think, do not let what happened last year fool you. I've got faith in this squad. I think they take a step forward, especially defensively, and they will give every single team on their schedule everything they've got. All they've got, very close games, very competitive team, the Trojans, a winning record and a shot at a 9-win season their first year in the Big Ten. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those expert picks. The earlier you sign up for those picks, guys, the better. We're telling you, you do not want to miss out on them. Go sign up for them today. The links for everything down in the description below. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.